much. It's late. No, but thank you very much first, Martin, Tim, for inviting me to come here for a few reflections on today. And I know you all want to go to the reception now and whatever. And this is a drag for you to stay here. There will be no panel, but we will actually try to close with a look from Mimi Darko, who actually is the head of the African Medicine Agency. A small flash and some reflection then on what we did today. And then we will have the climax with Kelly Chibale, who will end the day, the fruitful day, the nice day, stimulating day. That's the program that we would like to do. I was asked by Tim to say a few closing remarks, but I don't say them now. I wait until we have listened to Mimi. And I understand there is somewhere a video ready and video with speech. So please, Mimi, you are with us.
On behalf of the African Medicines Agency, I want to warmly congratulate MMV for the launch of Coartem Baby. This milestone reflects real innovation and commitment to protecting Africa's youngest from malaria. AMA is a pillar for Africa's health sovereignty, working to harmonize regulation and drive local manufacturing. MMV has long led the way for forging manufacturing partnerships. Bringing Coartem Baby into local production shows how together we can work to ensure access to quality medicines for every child.
That was Mimi. Thank you very much. We thank you very much, dear Mimi. If you hear that, I don't know, but you will hear it, that we thank you. And we actually, as you could hear, Mimi also particularly is also thanked for the innovation that was carried by MMV with regards to the baby Coartem. And we have talked a lot about it, so you know about it, hopefully. And it is something to add, you see. This was not just MMV did it, but actually we have, again, and I will get back to that one, we had also the important partnership with Novartis, and we had also the important partnership with EDCTP. Without these partners, this thing could not have been realized. And actually that we will take up again as an outlook, these partnerships. But first, again, I thank you very much that I'm really touched that I can say a few words to you. I'm at the moment, I think, the only one of these old bones that were there, the 12 that were actually 30 years ago, thinking how we get out of this whole despair. You know, the academics said to the private sector, give us money, we can do it. Also, many of the academics have never carried a molecule to the full development of a drug. And yes, and the private sector was in the 90s. We have to go back quickly to the 90s. Don't want to slide into romanticism, but in the 90s there was this climate where people didn't want to invest if there was no market. And so this was this critical situation where we met, and now I must close the circle from Martin to go back to a few elements of the creation of MMV. I mean, at that time we, of course, talked together and how these 12 people, and it's 12 or 20, that doesn't matter, but we were a small group. And when we wanted to meet in Geneva, where do we meet? So we met at the airport because that was a neutral territory. So people flew in from London or from whatever corners. I came by train from Basel, and some people from Hoffmann-La Roche also by train. And we had to meet there in order to have a neutral territory where nobody could say, yeah, no, WHO, TDR, they want to capture this, and the IMFPA wants to have a role to play. so it was the best moment. It was not the best place, but it was the best moment actually to meet at the airport. It's no longer possible. These meeting rules have changed, and we couldn't do it anymore. I don't want to go too much into the history, but there is one important point. Initially, in the strategic group, we wanted to embrace disease of poverty and neglected disease at once. And we had wonderful proposals on how this could be done. Yes. And then was this infamous Dolder meeting of the CEOs of the pharma companies, big and small pharma. And this proposal went very well. Sir Richard Sykes was very supportive. But somebody who had left GSK at that time, moved then to Roche, was actually raising the hand and said, you know, I mean, these people, of course we can say that, but these people, they should really first show it that they can do it with one disease. And that's why it started with Medicine for Malaria Venture as a public-private partnership. And later on, fortunately, to the Nobel Prize of MSF, we could then create DNDi in order to have a complement, not a full complement, but it was an important complement in order to move this idea into practice. And then came later on FIND and so on. They don't want to go further into that one. We can discuss it in other moments, some of the special history. I'm very sad that some of the colleagues are not here. This was these 12 people is only one female and 11 male, so I wish not to be too loud about this one. Totally gender unbalanced group that has actually created MMV. But it still works somehow, I think, as you could see today. Not because of the men, but I think it is because of the spirit that carried us. Don't take it wrongly, this thing. No.
Despite the men.
Yeah, despite the man. Martin is right. But, so, now I should be more serious. And sometimes I am serious, you see. The interesting thing at the very beginning, and that's now starting a few reflections, it was for us important that it would be a partnership. And actually, you should not use the word collaboration. It should be a partnership. And partnership in the correct way, because that has carried us in these PDPs, and particularly here in MMV, to success. And not just a little bit, here's a project, everybody does a little bit. No, really, partnership where roles and responsibilities are assigned and everybody fulfills it to the roles and responsibilities in order to reach an aim. And this would be my first outlook. We should keep this spirit of partnership, and we should eliminate things like collaboration and pilot never scales but always works. This is all these crap words we should not use. And actually, in order, what has brought the success to us should go on. Because partnership is not just a nice expression of being together. Partnership is actually the environment that allows the mutual learning for change, which has always been our essence that has driven us. It's not the essence to have a new drug very quickly, but it is actually this mutual learning, so that we have our partners, in a way, all working on the same level. So that is one thing. Now, of course, when we look at the outlooks, I don't repeat all the conclusions of our plenary sessions that were very stimulating. These sessions have opened for many of you new perspectives, I hope, and particularly the last one. I think with the AI session, the essence is not so much just the question on the databases that we discussed, but it's also there, a partnership issue. This AI, in a very good way used, is actually only working if we have this responsibility for a partnership as we tried to formulate and with the panel nicely showed. So it's my congratulations to MMV on the portfolio that you have achieved with the partnership, which I would like to carry into this room. And I mean, there is not now discussing all points of portfolio, but the whole discussion on the single doses was very interesting. It's not the newest one, but we are closer to achieving something, and everybody is now geared up for the ASHTM, where all the results will be shown and the world will be safe. But don't forget that actually we also had an interesting actually report from our team in Gabon, that already there, as we could hear, we have actually a single dose. And it's actually bringing this together is a great outlook. It's not just a possibility that we just now try again and again, because already Malaria has, 10, 15 years ago, clearly featured this single dose treatments. But it is actually a situation that we have in front of us where we now have, and therefore also the stimulus that we got with the platform trials in order to move things much quicker is something very important, because moving things quicker is not just that we have quicker a product, it's also an ethical dimension in the situation when we look at our malaria situation that we have to cope with. It's also an ethical dimension. And I don't want now to dissect the story of tafenoquine, but the story of tafenoquine was not just a long development, but there it had also delays that were, which I dare to say were not always ethical in a way to go forward. We can discuss this at another level. But you see many good outlooks, wonderful outlooks, but it is also, the bot says, the best is yet to come. And you are part of it if you continue with this partnership. Now, there are three other things which I want to, then I will be quiet and Kelly can close. But there is one other thing which actually I would like to carry on. Very often when you talked about cost, you talk about cost effectiveness. And I'm a little bit puzzled with, if you really say we want to work for our communities that are in impacted areas, then actually many of our approaches do not to be justified with cost effectiveness, but with cost benefit considerations. And we have done very often for our interventions, not so often we have seen really cost-benefit considerations of using our tools in the appropriate integrated way tailored to a setting. There we could actually also for the financing make a big point if we would actually justify it in this cost-benefit dimensions, tailored to a setting which, particularly in the current tectonic shift that we go through global health funding, we actually could stimulate more, and we have examples, domestic funding, by having a proper cost-benefit thinking tailored to the very much setting. That was one observation that I had as an outlook where we can work together. The other thing I was very happy, of course, that the effectiveness, efficacy to effectiveness stairs were used. They are also very old. But it was shown, and you go from efficacy over access to target and targeted and adherence and compliance and you know that. And this is nice. We have actually always advocated it and have encouraged people to do your own examples with figures. And in order just to see the dimension, what it matters to look at these personal and systems factors. I missed a little bit, and we should maybe, the effectiveness is very much dependent on the patient needs and not so much on the scientists that develops a tool. And I think this is something is going the stairs upwards. And maybe in keeping our approach in partnership and having an outlook, we should stronger consider the patient need. That was mentioned by many of our dear colleagues from Africa, that actually it's the patient needs that actually defines somehow how you can optimally tailor a tool, an intervention, or a combination of intervention to a setting. And so happy that Christina has used the stairs, but we should actually turn it around, and we actually should sometimes maybe more walk from the effectiveness to the efficacy than always having, here is my molecule, it will be effective. That was an observation that you may take along. And finally, Alice in Wonderland, and you, our dear friend Alan, you cited him. But there's one thing that actually was missing in citing it. It has to do with the approach, how we carry tools to the population. That was always a discussion we had from the first time that we started to use the E-words again, and when we also had the SAGME group, when we looked at the scientific possibility for eradication. You have to do these things at once, not once you distribute the bed net, then you go and treat somebody a bit, and then you treat, you have actually a bit of other vector control. Alan and our team, I think, has said it has to happen basically at once. Otherwise, you cannot cut transmission. I think that's the more important thing as just Alice running around, you see. And I think this is something which I also think that with all the great things we have now to carry to communities, this would be something to carry on and to remember. Yes, so now I'm at the end of these few reflections. And it was very nice, thank you again, that you even have this, in French we say vieillard, that you invite the vieillards, that they're still a part of the group. And it's my wonderful, very great pleasure that I can introduce my dear friend Kelly Chibale from South Africa. You see, if you look at the program H3D, what is this as a designation? Kelly is a pearl in R&D and development of teams that do actually R&D for diseases related to poverty and neglect. And so it's a wonderful pleasure. And Kelly will also share with you the slogan that will carry us further forward. I don't use it now as last word, but Kelly will do that one. So thank you very much, Kelly, that you were here. Mimi, also thank you very much. And thank you, my dear friends. I give the floor to Kelly.
I was wondering why nobody was drinking water here. Water is here to be drunk. That's why it's here. Otherwise, yeah. So maybe just a few remarks. So first of all, I think it would be extremely remiss of me not to express my deep thanks and appreciation to the organizers of this symposium, and of course in particular to Tim Wells for inviting me. Thank you very much, Tim. I also cannot resist defending AI. The skeptics, you heard, garbage in, garbage out. So who do you blame? The garbage that goes in, the data, not AI. AI is innocent. Please don't do it. So that's the first observation. The second one, actually is from Marcel, before I tell our secret and our slogan. Don't just think about eliminating malaria. Eliminate collaborations. That's what Marcel said. We must eliminate the word collaborations from our discussions. It's partnerships. If you really want to understand partnerships, and I'm sorry, I'm going to offend some people here, if you really want to understand partnerships, think about Liverpool Football Club. The motto is you never walk alone. That's what partnerships do. So you don't collaborate, you work in partnerships. Sorry, if you're a Man U supporter, I apologize, but this is really about partnerships. All right, so now I'll come back to Marcel now. Of course, Marcel, first of all, thank you very much for the very kind words. It's a tremendous honor, it's a tremendous privilege to be introduced by Marcel. If you have never been introduced by Marcel, you haven't been introduced by anyone. And apologies to anyone who introduced someone before, but it was my lifelong dream one day, when I feel that I've made it, when Marcel introduces me. Now I can rest in peace, because Marcel has introduced me now, finally. But you know, Marcel, you can quote him A to Z. But I just want to share with you two quotes. One, he didn't think that I'll go there, but I think the one that he referred to was a slogan, our slogan. It's a secret. But Marcel Tana is very well known for this phrase, which says, no root, no fruit. Yeah, so remember that. No root, no fruit. But the real slogan that Marcel was referring to is this. It's not important to be number one. We can debate who is even number one. We can debate. What's important is to be too dangerous to ignore. And that's Marcel. Marcel is too dangerous to ignore. That's the Muslim. That was just the beginning of my lecture, by the way, so I haven't even started. All right. So this is the title that Tim created. But I have my own title that I have. So this is the new century of medicines out of Africa. Century is 100 years, not millennium. Next millennium is 1,000 years. Now, the new century of medicines out of Africa. So when did the 100 years, when did we start counting? From when do we start counting up to 100 years? It's from the year 2010 for two reasons. The first reason is that 2010 is the year that we hosted the Soccer World Cup in South Africa. So that's one reason why the 100 years started in 2010. But the second reason why we began counting 100 years is because 2010 was the year when H3D was founded. That's why the new millennium for Africa is from 2010. This is the outline of what I'm going to be sharing with you in the next 15 or 20 minutes. The first one is really capturing what is the rise of African health innovation. Secondly, acknowledge some of the structural and systemic challenges. And of course, then thirdly, how strategic partnerships, and now I won't say collaboration because that's been eliminated now, so remove it from the slide. It's just strategic partnerships. And then also penultimately paint a vision for the future. And then a call to action. All right, the rise of Africa health innovation. So how do we move from the big five, which of course is what you think about when you think about Africa? It's a big five. Can tell you many stories about some people's ignorance, but I won't go there, maybe over a drink. So how do we go from here to this? So I think you've heard this compound mentioned right from the beginning of the session, from Martin through to Zaleka, et cetera, et cetera. So how do we move to a scenario in this new century of medicines coming out of Africa, led out of Africa? I emphasize led. It's always going to be partnerships. You can see this photograph. This was a feature in Nature Medicine 2013. says made in Africa. And there's a picture of a teenager known as Tim Wells. You can see it to my right. He is still recognizable, but you can see that was Tim. And to my left is the Honorable Minister, Naled Pandor, incredible minister. Enormous respect for Minister Pandor. But the question is now, how do we sustain this? So this is a story of H3D working with partners like MMV, Swiss TPH, et cetera, et cetera. How do we begin to expand the ecosystem and community in Africa? How do we begin to benefit from economies of scale? Because remember, it's partnerships. It's not about South Africa. It's about the rest of the African continent. And this is what we've been focusing on with our partners to expand the drug discovery ecosystem and community in Africa. And this is really about African research centers and organizations leading international efforts in partnerships with collaborators. So the focus has really been on strengthening the capacity. I don't like this word, capacity building. Capacity strengthening is more appropriate. There's always some level of capacity. How do we strengthen that capacity? How do we strengthen the expertise that is there in some form or shape? Secondly, we've been focusing on investing in platform technologies to support the drug discovery efforts. And of course, a very important component is training the next generation of African scientists in team-based drug discovery. And of course, tapping into, Marcel. The last point is international collaborators. Local and international partnerships. You should read it from the slide. So in this piece we published in 2022, and I encourage you to read this piece. This is not just about the story of how we built a center from nothing, basically. I've spent the last 30 years in South Africa. And when I moved to South Africa in 1996, what we have today did not exist when I moved. But it's also not just a model for building or strengthening capacity. It's also, I think, a model that many academic institutions around the world can learn from in terms of how you embed a translational unit within a university setting and manage performance. I never imagined in my life, I'm a chemist by training, and that's why I'm wearing this tie. It's because I'm a chemist, a hardcore chemist for that matter. I never imagined I'll be dealing with human resource. HR is not human resource, it's human resistance. I never imagined I'll be dealing with that. But that's something we've done and pioneered at UCT, working with Novartis and many partners, to create a system that really supports innovation within an academic setting. So, what exactly are we doing to expand the drug discovery ecosystem and community in Africa? This is underpinned by 4 initiatives that you see summarized here. The first initiative was mentioned in Zoleka's video. So that's the initiative on the left-hand side. This is the Grand Challenges African Drug Discovery Accelerator Network, or GCADA. This is a network that is sharing resources, expertise, and infrastructure, working on joint projects. It was established by the H3D Foundation with significant support from the Gates Foundation and LifeHack. Tremendous thanks to the Gates Foundation and LifeHack for the financial support. So this network has so far linked 8 African countries, 22 research institutions of scientists prosecuting drug discovery projects. And we currently have 4 flagship projects. One in malaria, it's a consortium led by Richard Ameu, who's in the room, with Lynn Marie Becker from South Africa. Second program, a consortium led by Eric Strauss from Stellenbosch on TB, but also includes multiple partners from other parts of Africa. And the third one, led by Kore Mirembwa is really understanding African drug metabolism in light of this huge genetic diversity that's on the African continent. And then the fourth project is really copied from MMV. The MMV screening boxes is a grant to Fidelity to prepare a library of natural products from Africa to screen. The second pillar initiative underpinning expanding the ecosystem and community in Africa is mentorship. Knowledge transfer from the experts to the trainees working on projects. And this is a program that has been funded very generously for a number of years by the Gates Foundation, which is really about pairing mentees, early career researchers, with subject matter experts from the industry, and really working together in a structured manner. So I have chosen, knowing I was coming to Switzerland, to exemplify Christina and Jeremy Barrows. So this is really an important program. Interestingly, the vast majority of the mentors who put their hands up when we put out a call, the majority actually are from the US, contributing to this program. The third pillar is workshops. I want to labor the point about workshops. But a very new initiative is called Rafiki, which Marcel Tana knows what Rafiki means. Rafiki is Swahili for friend or companion. But this is a program you can read for yourself. It's a new program, involves a network of partners, including MMV, including the drug discovery unit at University of Dundee, et cetera, supported by the EU and the government of Switzerland. So, I have just finished telling you about African-led drug discovery. So, how do we shift and begin to think about seeing drug discovery and development and delivery and access as a continuum, so that we don't just address one component? If anything, addressing one component is futile. But how do we also ensure that clinical development, drug development, and clinical trials are led out of Africa as part of a global ecosystem? And this is, I think, tremendous thanks to EDCTP, who has invested a significant amount of money in supporting a number of clinical trials in Africa. One of the things that has bedeviled clinical trials in Africa in the past is not having a pipeline of projects, a pipeline of trials to do, that then, of course, there's no continuity, and we don't sustain the clinical trials infrastructure and platforms because of a lack of pipeline of projects. And I think EDCDP has been transformational in ensuring that there's continuity at various levels. This funding, I think, has been transformational. Here are just some examples of where the funding has gone, from longitudinal studies, confirming the safety of SCTs, redosing over 2 years. Safety in pregnancy, we heard about Sapphire earlier today, but also we heard about new molecules coming into the pipeline. And EDCTP support has really been critical in ensuring that this capacity is developed, but also that Africans are leading these efforts. The important thing that this is really about co-creating solutions and having a shared responsibility. I often think about partnerships at the level of understanding that in a partnership there must be mutuality. There's mutual interest. When all the partners are interested in partnerships, it's mutual interest. And with that comes mutual responsibility. And with mutual responsibility comes also mutual accountability, mutual respect, and mutual trust. So this is really what EDCP is enabling to happen. All right, I don't want to dwell too much on problems. Whenever there are problems, people knows everyone knows what the problem is. Let's talk more about solutions. But just to highlight why these partnerships are really important, some of the things that have really, funding gaps are not just something unique to Africa. We're all experiencing funding challenges in global health today. Many African countries after independence, many governments invested tons of money to train their nationals, send them abroad. But we're still talking about the absence of a critical mass of skilled talent. And that's because we cannot retain this talent. African science is not dead, it's living somewhere in Switzerland or North America, somewhere. And of course, there's also the issue of harmonization of the regulators. I think this is something encouraging with the creation of the African Medicines Agency. When it becomes fully operational, I think it's a game changer. But it's not going to replace the national regulators, but a significant step forward. I sat on the board of SAPRA, which is a local regulator in South Africa, and to see the business case and some of the reasons why we don't attract enough clinical trials. AMA is really transformational, and I hope that we can really benefit from what AMA will bring to the African continent. Infrastructure. I don't talk about infrastructure in terms of a physical building. Infrastructure is also systems. And one of the biggest problems that we have, which is a major barrier to R&D, is procurement. Reagents and chemicals in drug discovery. We make decisions. We need data to make decisions. We need data to train AI models, et cetera, et cetera. But procurement is a major, major barrier. So infrastructure is more than a physical building. But how these collaborations really help us, not collaborations, apologies, Marcel, not collaborations, how do these partnerships help us address these challenges? And these, for me, are the lessons learned from working with MMV. In 2008, I took a sabbatical and I went to Pfizer in Sandwich, here in the UK. No, this is Switzerland, sorry. I was in London last week, so I'm still thinking I'm still in the UK. But these are the lessons I learned from there in terms of addressing some of those challenges around infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. First of all, you have to have some basic infrastructure. That is up to you. That's up to your leaders. That's up to your government to provide the infrastructure so you can attract projects. But the second important lesson is working on a globally aligned project, because then you're working with partners. And you focus on contributing to that project from your home institution with what you have. And then rely on your partners to help you address the gaps that you have. That's a model. Common Centers of Excellence. And I picked this slide. This was a publication by Solomon Rwakwa and Alan Hudson. Solomon Rwakwa used to work for TDR. Tremendous credit for him for really putting this out in terms of this model of networks of partners. This is exactly what MMV is about, creating networks of partners, whether it's screening, whether it's drug metabolism, et cetera, et cetera. But underpinning all of this, and embedded in all of this, is a knowledge transfer. Mentorship is so critical. When we started, I came back on sabbatical, and we started working with MMV, I had been mentored by Mike Whitty, ex-Pfizer. My team members had benefited from being mentored by industry experts, et cetera, et cetera. So this is an important aspect, that we must embed mentorship to transfer knowledge from the experts. The last two slides are really about what is the vision for the future. So I'll paint this one from a clinical perspective, and then the other one from the R&D, drug discovery perspective. So the first one is this. I think you've seen a lot more recently, supported by several instruments, whether it's the World Health Assembly resolution, the WHO guidance for best practices in clinical trials, the Global Action Plan for Clinical Trials, ecosystem strengthening, the WHO Global Clinical Trial Forum, etc., etc. Ultimately, it's supporting the global clinical trial ecosystem across the world. That's why we talk about global health. There's often a perception when you say global health, people think it's LMICs. No, it's global. That's why it says global. It doesn't say Africa, it says global. So it's everybody in the world. But importantly, as we saw from the funding that EDCDP has provided, is really local leadership. Africa is about how can we champion the rise of African medicines R&D ecosystem, end to end. I said earlier, we've got to see everything as a continuum, from discovery to development to delivery to access. This is the vision of what we need to see. It's not just clinical trials supported by EDCDP alone. It's to enable the discovery pipeline to move forward, where there are economies of scale to feed into the clinical pipeline. And my final slide on the vision for the future is really understanding that just like R&D has a value chain, manufacturing also has a value chain. There's a wrong focus in many quarters on one type of manufacturing. There are 3 types of manufacturing. There's manufacturing of an approved product. That's what most people think about. But the second type of manufacturing is manufacturing for clinical trials. Those are new molecular entities. And for clinical trials to happen, you need to manufacture. So we had this experience working with MMV when we were developing MMV 048. We needed 5 kilograms of material to do the phase 1 in Cape Town that Zoleka mentioned in a video. We had to outsource this somewhere else. So the second type of manufacturing is manufacturing for clinical trials. The third type of manufacturing is manufacturing for preclinical studies. And for us, this is a lived experience. When we identify a candidate and we need to scale up material for extensive safety studies, we have to embarrassingly go somewhere else to get half a kilogram. Just recently in December, we had to find almost $500,000 to pay a CRO to scale up a compound that we are profiling for TB as a candidate. But you can see when there's enough activity, when there are economies of scale, as we are beginning to see it in Africa, that's an opportunity for spin-out companies to exist, providing not just intermediates and scale up for preclinical studies, but also manufacturing to support clinical trials. We cannot talk about increasing the number of clinical trials and the number of Africans participating in clinical trials without thinking about manufacturing to support those clinical trials. And that manufacturing has to be led by the people where the trials are happening, in this case, Africa. But the point is that we have to really think about the fact that R&D is a major catalyst for manufacturing. I think we see this not just in Europe or North America. You can see it in China, you can see it in India. So really, we've got to see this, and I hope this is my dream in this century, so 90 more years, to see this being a reality. I'll finish off with my last slide is really just a call to action, shamelessly looking for business, not quite business. I think as you saw, one of the things that's been very important for this networks of partnerships model is mentorship. And so we really welcome mentors to participate in global health mentorship programs. Follow the example of Christina Donini and Jeremy Barrows and join them in providing mentorship to young people. Exchanges. We had an amazing partnership with Novartis. We signed sometime in 2012. And these are many elements, including the exchange of scientists. So we identify gaps jointly with Novartis, and we'll send H3D scientists to one of the Novartis sites, either in Basel or in Singapore or in Cambridge in the US. But it didn't stop there. It was bi-directional. Novartis scientists would then also come to Cape Town and spend 3 months, sometimes 4 months, and really working in our environment and supporting people in their local environment. So again, really interested in scientific exchanges. And of course, partnerships. Oh, I was so prophetic. I didn't say collaborations. Partnerships, of course. These could be research partnerships, but also funding partnerships. If you listen to Zuleika's message, the message is this, and I really big shout out to the government of the Republic of South Africa. I'm not paid to talk on behalf of the government, but I'm telling you a real story. I'll give you just 2 examples, maybe 3. For every dollar we get from the Gates Foundation, and they've been funding us for a long time, we get matching funds from South African government programs. The Technology Innovation Agency gives us a core budget for as long as we've existed to maintain the infrastructure. There are 75 people in H3D today. 20 salaries come from the Technology Innovation Agency. And without that support, we would not be able to maintain the infrastructure. But also for projects. So $1 we get from the Gates Foundation, we get a matching dollar from the government. The partnership with MMV has gone the same way. So partnership between MMV and the South African Medical Research Council. This is government money. One time Novartis gave us a very generous donation that allowed us to refurbish labs and bring in industry talent to Cape Town. We could access government funding for that. So again, it's not just research collaborations or research partnerships, but it's also funding partnerships, which have been the model of how we've been able to grow the center and sustain it for so long because of government support. And then, of course, finally, money. So if you have any spare change, we are willing to take it. So with that, Tim, thank you very much once again for inviting me. I could not have imagined I'll be speaking in front of many friends and colleagues. And this is a proverb that you always see on many slides. This is, for me, talking about partnerships. If you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, we go together in partnership. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear Kelly, for the stimuli. But you know, the only thing is we want to go fast and far at once. And I think that would be the outlook of this afternoon. And I don't rehearse more on all these wonderful stimuli you have set. But you now understand why he wants to be too dangerous to be ignored, you see. And I think this is the way forward together with going fast and far. And I thank you very much. It's now really going to the end. Martin, not Tim. I hand back to Martin and not Tim, because initially I thought Tim is about photographs, cocktails, and I don't know about all these things. Thank you very much, everybody. Martin.
So final stretch, 3 minutes, and this is just to say some thank yous, which I think are really important, because this has been a fantastic day. Thank you, firstly, to all of you for coming. It makes a difference to be together, doesn't it? I think it's good to be in the same room. We're going to have a really fun reception tonight. And if you like this, if we get good feedback, maybe we could make this a regular gathering. Not annually, perhaps, maybe every 2 years when we've got new things to talk about. So let us know what you think. But we're delighted. I want to thank all the speakers. I want to thank the moderators. I want to thank the panels. They did a lot of work to prepare this. I want to thank our amazing MMB events team under Lindsay's leadership. Can we give them a round of applause? And Tim, can you stand up, please? I want to thank Tim, because we talked about this being a good idea about a year ago, right? And Tim just ran with it. And he had amazing ideas. He designed the format. He reached out to all of the speakers, the panelists. He went through the concept. We decided the themes. Tim, the theme of partnership, I think, was incredibly prescient. But you did so much work. You spoke to so many people. Only you could have, I think, generated the support and the attendance we've had here today. And I think really, this is down to you. So please, everyone, please join me in thanking Tim for organising this meeting.